28 Days Later is arguably one of the best zombie genre films ever made. From the very shots of true isolation to running zombies, incredible acting, a great story, and perfect cinematography for that style film. 28 Weeks Later was a really good sequel. It pulled away from the gritty shooting style and low-resolution digital cameras and instead adopted a more familiar and safer style of shooting. While the first film dealt with the madness of the outbreak as it was occurring, the sequel was of the aftermath, the calm. But of course, the story would develop into something deeper and more robust, introducing chaos back into the film. So here we are, almost 22 years exactly after the first film was released. Does Danny Boyle's third installment still have the depth, the grittiness, and all the things we loved about the first two films? Yes and no. I'm just getting back home from seeing it in my incredibly empty local theater. Before we get into the full review, just a reminder, I will not share any spoilers from the movie. You're safe to watch to the end. That out of the way, let's get into the good, the bad, and the ugly of 28 Years Later. First, of course, is the good. Like the other entries into this franchise, the opening throws out all of the stops. It brings you back to the feels of the first two films with both the action that plays out on the screen as well as the amazing cinematography. More on that in a bit. We waste no time creating panic and confusion, ultimately teeing up the title in the lower third, 28 Years Later. We're introduced to a small village built up for survival. Think some of the villages in The Walking Dead, right? We're introduced to our main characters, and they are comprised by amazing cast. Aaron Taylor Johnson is awesome as always. Jodie Comer absolutely blew me away in her just acting phenomenally. Awesome. Can't say enough about her. And young Alfie Williams commanded the spotlight in every scene he was in. What an amazing little actor he is. Back to the cinematography, though. While there were plenty of shots similar to 28 Weeks Later, where they were more stable, cleaner, and traditional in appearance, much of what was captured had similar feels to the first film, just in significantly higher resolution. Both the jarring movements of the camera and the snap cuts from shot to shot made you feel like you were right there in the fight. This has always been one of my favorite parts of this franchise, and I'm so happy to see them lean right back into it. We meet other characters along the way, like Ray Fiennes, and everyone does a great job. Unfortunately, this is where the good will have to come to an end. Next up is the bad. Honestly, there's not a lot here, but there was definitely too much going on in this movie. The trailers for Superman come to mind. As we've seen countless superheroes, villains, and other notable characters already introduced, how will they work all of them into the concise single story? 28 Years Later is any indication, not so well. I feel like there was more we could have gotten from certain characters in their stories. Just a storyline would get interesting. They moved on to something else. There was plenty of conflict, but not enough resolution. To be honest, there probably could have been more conflict to raise the stakes several times, but I'm probably just being nitpicky at this point. That's pretty much it for the bad, though. There was nothing woke. There was nothing that looked like it was made for the modern audience. So don't worry about any of that. And now the ugly. 2 words. The ending. The ending is always a challenge for any film. How do you tie up loose ends? How do you end it as strong as you started? How do you give the audience something to think about or look back fondly on? Well, apparently you don't. As things come to a close, there are new storylines introduced, new characters that come into the picture. Old characters are basically written off needlessly. And there seems to be zero closure on at least 90% of the storylines introduced. Honestly, it felt more like a longer episode of last season's Stranger Things, building up to the next episode, which kind of makes sense as this is supposed to be the first of a trilogy. According to reports, the second entry of this trilogy has already been shot and was directed by none other than Nia DaCosta. That's right, the director of the Candyman reboot and The Marvels. Despite that, each film in a series should have its own solid conclusion and just tie everything together throughout each film. This one didn't. In fact, the very last scene, in my opinion, was incredibly out of place, silly, goofy, and gave us a callback we were expecting but didn't really need. So there's always a few questions I ask myself when reviewing a film. Did I enjoy it? I actually did. It was intriguing, fun to watch, full of action, and had me on the edge of my seat many times. Did it have a good story? I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. There were good stories started, but rarely were they ever finished. I have so many questions, but the film does little to give me the closure and answers I'm expecting. So, as a good story typically has a beginning, middle, and end, this was missing a lot of the ends. So I would have to say no. It's not a good story because it's missing the last piece of what would even qualify as a story, I guess. Um, I don't know. Would I watch it again? As time goes on and I forget how frustrating it was to not get endings to so many beginnings, I would probably watch it again if I scroll past it on a streaming platform I was already paying for. I wouldn't go out of my way to see it again, and I definitely wouldn't spend any more money on it. Would I recommend it? That really depends. If you're a fan of the first two films, I would say this is a good watch. Even without the completion of several storylines, it's still very entertaining and kind of pulls you back to the feels of the first two. Now, if you've never seen 28 Days Later or 28 Weeks Later, or if you did see them and you just didn't love them, like I loved them, I would probably say sit this one out. If you're super curious to see it, maybe catch it when it comes to streaming, honestly. Hey, look, if you watched up to this point, thank you. If you've enjoyed it or got anything out of it, please consider hitting the like button and possibly subscribing or following. Although I didn't give away any spoilers, I do feel it's only right to share this one thing. It's not a spoiler, and I'm sure you can already find this on the interweb somewhere, but if you're expecting to see Cillian Murphy, I say Cillian Murphy, is it Cillian or Killian? I don't know. If you're expecting to see Cillian Murphy return, you will be sadly disappointed. He's an executive producer on it, but he does not appear in the film unless he's one of the zombies or villagers or something else that doesn't really get any screen time. I don't know, but no, he's not in the film. At least not in this one. But since there's two more to go to complete this trilogy, who knows?